This video is for you guys' grammar this week. It's about adverbs, and I'm going to do all 4 of the pages in one video. So we're going to start on 126 first, and I'll kind of explain what adverbs are and show you a couple examples. So at the top it says an adverb can tell how, when, where, or how often an action happens. Some adverbs tell how much or how intensely. What I always do to find adverbs is first I find the verb and then I find the adverbs. It just seems to work out easier that way, and it makes it a little bit more clear as to what the adverb or adverbs are. The second bullet point says transitional words such as the conjunctive adverb therefore connect 2 clauses together. And remember, clauses are just like a part of a sentence. They can be a whole sentence by themselves, or sometimes they're a fragment too. The relative adverbs where, when, and why can also introduce clauses. So if you see where, when, and why, you're automatically going to circle those, okay? So read each sentence, underline each adverb, and then circle any conjunctive or relative adverbs you find. So you are circling, therefore, where, when, and why, and you're underlining all the rest of the adverbs. So number 1 says, I sat patiently on the park bench. Oh, I don't remember if I explained this either before we do this, but I circled the word how because adverbs often tell how something is done. That's usually what they tell most of the time. So, number 1, I sat patiently on the park bench. Well, first I have to find the verb, and the verb is what the person did. So this person sat. Okay, so sat is the verb. And like I said, a lot of times adverbs tell how. So how did they sit? They sat patiently. So I'm going to underline patiently because it's an adverb. It's not conjunctive or relative. It's not one of these. I hungrily ate my sandwich. Well, the verb is ate because that's what you can do. And how did they eat? Hungrily. 3, I carelessly dropped crumbs on the ground. The verb is dropped. That's something you can do. How did they drop them? Carelessly. So just ask yourself how most of the time. 4, tiny sparrows darted around frantically at my feet. The verb is darted. Darted is what the sparrows were doing. How did they dart? They darted frantically. So hopefully that helps you out in finding adverbs. Just find the verb first and then ask yourself, how did they do it? And underline that word. Okay, next up we have page 127. At the top it says an adverb can describe an adjective or another adverb. So we're going to read each sentence, underline each adverb. On the lines provided, write whether each adverb modifies a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. That last part is going to be kind of tricky. I want you to focus on underlining each adverb. If we were in school, we would, go into a lot more detail with this. So focus on underlining the right word that's an adverb, and then try the second part, writing it on the line. I want you to try it, but I want you to more so focus on the underlining, okay? Number 1, the skier looked anxiously down the mountain. Well, what did the skier do? We're still going to find the verb first. The skier looked. And how did the skier look? He or she looked anxiously down the mountain. And this adverb happens to modify a verb. Because remember how we find the verb and then we ask how did they do it? Anxiously. 2, incredibly strong winds blew from the north. Okay, this one is a little bit tricky because this adverb does not modify a verb. So it's going to be a little bit different. This adverb actually modifies an adjective And remember, adjectives define nouns. So they tell like how much, how many, what color, what shape, all of those things. So what the adjective happens to be is strong. Okay, the winds were strong. What kind of winds? They were strong. That's the adjective. The adverb then is incredibly. They were incredibly strong. Another very, very helpful hint about adverbs. Look at the pattern. They almost always end in ly. So if there's an ly word in the sentence, look at that one first and see, does it tell how, when, where, or how often? And that's probably your adverb. Okay, so that's a little hint if this is tricky for you. Number 3, the snow was accumulating quite quickly. Here, we're back to the verb because the snow was accumulating, that's the verb. And how was it accumulating? Quickly. Notice that ly again. So the adverb modifies the verb. Again, students and parents, don't let this last part be like really stressful because I'm just more worried about the students being able to identify adjectives. This last part is a little bit confusing. Number 4, she could hardly see the bottom of the slope. We are going to underline hardly, and then we have to think about what does this modify? And our options are a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. And the verb is see. She could hardly see. So this also modifies a verb because that was how she was seeing. She could hardly see. It'd be the same thing if we said she could clearly see. That's how she was seeing, okay? Another helpful hint is that most often adjectives do modify verbs. Most often. Okay, we'll move on. We're going to do a little bit of capitalization as well this week. So this is worksheet 128. It says capitalize the first word, all important words, and all proper nouns in a greeting. So this is like letter writing. Capitalize only the first word in the closing. Capitalize these abbreviations commonly used in letters and formal emails. Mrs., Mr., Miss, Doctor, or incorporated. Read each part of the letter. On the lines provided, rewrite each part with the correct capitalization. So, we are going to look at, let's see. Make sure that you really follow the directions here. This first one, to whom it may concern, we're going to look at first greetings, okay? So we capitalize the first word, which I actually already did. So to needs to be capitalized. All important words and all proper nouns. There actually aren't any proper nouns and aren't any other words that need to be capitalized. So you just get to write it as it is. To whom it may concern. Okay. Next one, I'm writing on behalf of Dr. Morton and Mrs. Rodriguez. Pay close attention to your abbreviations. They all need to be capitalized. So Dr., and you're rewriting this, remember, and Mrs. And then also these people's names. Morton, which it already is, but Rodriguez also needs to be capitalized. Okay? And don't forget to capitalize I because it's the start of the sentence. So go ahead and try those. And then finally this week on page 130, this is just a review of everything that you've done. So you may want to look back at your previous worksheets. You may want to have them handy for the directions because at the top you're going to be underlining each adverb. And again, the word it modifies, I don't want you to stress about that second part. Just give it a try, okay? But I mostly want you to just underline each adverb. Remember, adverbs often modify verbs. A lot of times I'll find the verb first. They oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes end in ly. And they tell, this is where your other instructions will come in handy, they tell how, when, where, or how often, but a lot of times they tell how. So that's what you'll do at the top. It's exactly what you were doing on page 126 and 127. And then part B, you're capitalizing, so you may want these capitalization rules handy from page 128 for part B on page 130, and you're going to do the exact same thing.